say it multiple times. Hey, everybody. Welcome to This Pink Cloud.
Fam.
You can actually do it now.
Chill out, dude.
I am DJ Kelly Reverb. You have tuned in. You have tuned in to This Pink Cloud. We are a show that is about multiple pathways to recovery.
Yep.
And not multiple pathways to the bathroom.
Yeah, dude.
But yeah, mental health and all that good stuff. Speaking of mental health, everybody, my serial killer,
the resident expert,
the resident expert
on mental health issues,
and serial killer friend, Chad Lamons. Everybody,
hey guys, hey, you see, I mean, I like this show. I like this show a lot. It's done some pretty sweet, seen some pretty sweet episodes. From across the room.
But make sure you subscribe to the video.
Make sure you subscribe to the videos or whatever, and you watch the videotape, and then you can leave. Yeah.
Anyway, dude, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right. Well,
that's pretty much it.
That's all you got.
That's all I got. That's all I got today.
Well, we're excited to have your boss lady in, right?
One of them, yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, let's give it up for Beth Burchett.
Woo!
Did I get that right?
Guys. Yes. Yeah, perfect.
Nice. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Sorry, there's a delay, dude.
Wow, that's loud.
Is that like the angelic choir singing because I'm here?
Yeah, that was what it was.
Exactly. Well, and I appreciate you actually showing up on time.
Hell yeah.
I'm very honored to be here.
Fire James up.
Yeah, right?
No, I do appreciate being asked to come.
Well, yeah, no. So Chad tells me you have quite a story, so I am excited to hear that.
Beth was out there, dude.
Yeah, and that is
out there, dude.
That is what I hear. And then we'll also talk about how you got into recovery, because that is your vocation these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's start with the history, and then we'll ask questions.
Okay.
All right.
I can honestly say I hear a lot of people that give their stories that talk about their childhood and how things were, and never understood what the point of that was until I had my story to put together, because my story doesn't entail a whole lot of childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. My parents were divorced, but I was in a safe environment, never wanted for anything. I did have a lot of health issues, which required a lot of medical.
Oh, okay. What was going on?
Well, I was diagnosed with an autoinflammatory bowel disease at 14.
Wow.
So when I was born, I constantly ran a fever, constantly had what they would call a virus.
Uh-huh.
And so it meant many, many trips to Children's Medical Center, Wadley Blood Center, and an allergist.
Uh-huh.
On a regular basis.
And was that almost like having a diverticulitis, IBS kind of situation, or what?
What would happen? Well, what I can remember, and I don't remember as a child
Sure.
when I was little, but I remember going into middle school, high school. I can remember waking up and my bones, my joints hurting so bad.
Oh, wow.
And major headaches and just constant stomach pain. And I had gone to numerous doctors, and finally they put me in touch with a gastroenterologist out of Michigan.
Okay.
And he actually had came to Children's Medical Center. Mm-hmm. And so when he came, he ran several tests. Of course, had to do a colonoscopy, which was real fun.
Right.
At the age of 13, and you don't know what's going on.
Sure.
But they found out that I had ulcerations from my mouth. I would have ulcers almost like fever blisters on the outside of my mouth, inside my mouth, down my throat, and into my stomach and gastrointestinal system.
Okay.
And he was the one that came and said, yeah, she has what's called Behçet's.
Okay.
It's actually spelled Bachets. Very rare, like one in however many.
So you just
thousands.
Get these naturally occurring. There's no because we would get mouth ulcers as kids because of taking too much vitamin C.
Well, but I was constantly running fever.
Right.
And it was never just a low temp. I was running high fevers, and I can remember it was nothing for me to miss, say, a week of school, a month.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting put homebound. Okay. So I had to be taught at home for a year. Very restrictive diet. No dyes, no nothing. Couldn't be around contact with anybody. If somebody had a cold and I was around them, well, then I ended up getting the flu and pneumonia. It just amplified.
Oh, wow.
And So at 14, when
So
I
it's
was
kind of like, are you familiar with that movie that John Travolta was in, The Boy in the Plastic Bubble? Do you remember that?
I don't remember
well,
that.
so it's basically where he had to be
well, yeah, I mean that's how I
self-contained.
felt because
yeah.
it was, when I was homebound, I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do any church activities. I could do nothing. I was home.
Right.
So that was very challenging. I had a tutor that came to my house and taught me my
Right.
schoolwork, and it made it very awkward for me in some situations. But my parents made it kind of as normal
Right.
as what that could
Well,
be.
that was good. But
And-
so it was basically like going through COVID your
Yeah,
entire
for a
life.
whole year.
And
Yeah.
feeling like shit.
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then not knowing what's going on,
Right.
not understanding why, because it was just constant. I was being poked and prodded and stuck, and it was just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, when they diagnosed me at 14, they put me on a medication that is actually used to treat gout.
Okay.
And I started taking that, and probably within about a month, I mean, I felt like, oh my gosh, is this what it means? Is this what it's supposed to feel like to be healthy? Is this what
Right.
it's supposed to feel like to be okay? And I can remember whenever I went back for a checkup, my doctor told me, he was like, there's certain things with your immune system you have to be very careful of, because I think I was 10 or 11 when they had to have 5 men that were non-smokers, non-drinkers, in perfect health, in good condition, donate T cells,
okay.
which was, for your immune system.
Yeah.
And they donated these T cells, and then I went once a week to the doctor to be injected with these T cells because
wow.
of my immune system. I didn't have one.
Right.
And so because of that, my doctor had told me, there's certain things you want to be careful of, certain things that, to boost your immune system, keep your immune system up. Oh, and by the way, you probably shouldn't have kids because it will just deplete you so bad that you may not make it.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, well, when I started taking the colchicine, felt great. I was going into my probably freshman year of high school, and everything started rapidly happening with, drill team and football and basketball and all kinds of, extracurriculars I could be a part of finally.
Right.
My junior year.
What was that? What was that like to go from basically being in prison to all of a sudden, there's a kind of a cure,
Invincibility.
Yeah. Okay.
And honestly, at that time, I didn't put that together in my mind until
Right.
after I got into high school and got older and things started happening and I experienced different things that I was like,
right.
nothing can hurt me now.
Right.
Hell yeah.
I mean, because
It's like Chad over here.
I got T cells for
Right.
days.
Right.
I've got enough, I can let you borrow some.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, okay, now I'm okay. I mean, I can do it all.
Sure.
And I can remember my parents telling me that at that point, when they realized that this was fixable, not curable, but fixable,
Right.
they were going to let me do as much as I could possibly do before I went into remission.
Okay.
And that was, I'm 51 now. I probably stopped taking the colchicine. No, I did stop taking it when I was 21 because I got pregnant.
Okay.
So for the last 30 years, I have been in remission.
Right. Okay.
Hell
Well,
yeah.
that's great. But then was it just something that I guess you grew out of, basically, or?
I'm going to say that a lot of it had to do with stress,
Okay.
honestly.
Okay.
I think a lot of that, our guts are our foundation for everything anyway.
Right.
And so I think that there was some stress with parents. You've got the step parent and the parent, and there was a lot of miscommunication and misunderstanding when it came to how one parent acted against the other parent, things like that.
And you probably, as a kid, you're just being a kid and you have no idea what's going on.
No,
or-
you don't. And I think that the hardest thing is you want to believe what your parents tell you.
Of course.
They're your parents,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Why would they lie, or why would they misconstrue the truth?
Right.
And so that made it very difficult later in life when some truths were revealed to me in congruency to that. But again, I think that the stress level with that, because we were back and forth to grandparents' house, and I didn't get to see my dad, but maybe once a year, because he was in the military.
Okay.
So he would come in, and when he came in, of course, we made the best of it. We made the most of it. But it was very hard not having. Now, my stepdad was great. Don't get me wrong. He
Right.
taught me basketball, and we did homework. But that's not your dad, you know.
Sure.
So it made it very difficult because my dad tried to step in as much as he could when he was home.
Right.
But,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, was there any kind of animosity between the parenting?
Most definitely.
Yeah. So there was like that guy's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
No, that guy's a piece of shit.
Yeah. That kind of was, you know,
right.
it was the image that was formed in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that again, well, why would my parent lie to me about that?
Right.
You know, so I had a very misconstrued image.
Right.
You know,
of what was really going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But hey, I can learn to look at it now and say, I'm not responsible for their choices.
Right.
I'm just responsible for how I handle it now.
Sure.
And, you know, I have to learn to there's no partiality and there's no favoritism, but I have to respect all parents as a whole.
Sure.
So, you know, but then, you know, it was one against the other. And so,
yeah.
And at that age, you don't have that emotional maturity to know how to handle it.
Right.
And there wasn't a lot of talk in my home about emotions or how to handle an emotion.
Right.
Because as I got into high school, I remember I wasn't into the boyfriend thing or girlfriend thing. I wasn't into any of that, you know, until my senior year in high school, because I was just all the way engulfed with sports and being a part of an FHA and FCA and all this because I'd missed out on so much. And I remember my senior year having my first boyfriend, you know, and it was a serious thing for me because I'd never had a boyfriend.
Sure.
And I remember we kind of, what did he call it? Took a break, you know, and it did. It crushed me. I mean, it really did. And I remember going home and crying, you know, being upset about it. And, you know, I was asked, you know, what's wrong? You broke up with me.
Right.
Look, we're not going to cry about stuff like that.
Well, and it's also, but I mean, also you didn't experience, you know, your first crush until
my I was 17 years old. Yeah.
So you're a late bloomer, and you're trying to stuff all this in.
Exactly.
At once.
And I mean, it was like an emotional overflow, you know, and not knowing how to handle that, and then being told, don't talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, just stuff it down.
Be a big girl. You know, it's kind of how I took it. Okay, I've got to learn.
That's what my parents said to me. They said, be a big girl. They said, be a big girl. Don't talk about your feelings.
I was going to make a crack on your man tits, but
I don't have those, according to this camera angle.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Hey, I'm going to say, Chad, you're looking supple today.
What is that? I'm not from the fucking. I'm not from the
You're looking
1920s, you asshole.
You're looking full today, maybe?
Full, yeah.
You're looking buxom today.
You look. Yeah, well, I ain't seen you in a while. You sure look healthy, don't you?
That's the nice way of saying you look fat.
Yeah, dude. Well, God bless. You sure look healthy, don't you?
Bless your heart.
See, now I always do that. Like it's a country thing. It definitely, because it's like, well, bless his heart. You know, that's it.
We don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
Bless your heart.
Exactly.
He's just been touched by the Lord.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah. So I guess senior year, and then all these emotions are going on, and then your parents are telling them to stuff it, and then apparently you did and got pregnant at some point.
Well, whenever all the emotional overload came and the breakup came was when I discovered alcohol.
Oh, okay.
Hell yeah.
The greatest coping mechanism ever.
It numbs all the
Right,
pain, by the way.
sure.
No, I remember being at my best friend's house on the day that, you know, we broke up. And she was like, here, just drink a glass of this. And I was like, hey, that's pretty good. I thought it was Kool-Aid, you know. And I was like,
Boone's Farm?
No. I thought I'm going to have me another glass of that. I mean, we were drinking glasses. You know? So I had me another glass, and then I thought, oh, I kind of feel good.
Right.
But it wasn't one of these, I feel good, rock on. It was like, I don't have to feel anything.
Right.
And that instant click of this will drown and numb anything. And it clicked, and it made an instantaneous obsession for me to go, hey, anytime I need to not feel a dream,
I got my solution.
that's it.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Well, come to find out, it was Everclear that I was drinking.
Wow.
Everclear and Kool-Aid.
It was, what was it, purple?
Trash can punch.
dude.
Yeah. And but I just remember the absolute mental flip in my mind. And so then it was bar hopping for me. Then I discovered the bars, and
Right.
I thought, again, I'm invincible, and I thought I looked so pretty, and I could get into the bars and not have to have my ex on my hand or anything like that. And it was, I was living the life, I thought. And I could walk in and be like, "Hey, Beth," and it's like, "Hey, rock on,"
Right.
I didn't. To me, that was, again, I was invincible. What was going to happen to me?
Right.
What's going to happen to me? Because, I've already overcame this one thing. I can take this Medicaid, rocking
Right.
on, rocking on.
Yeah.
And I went to a bar one night, and I met this guy, and we kind of hit it off, and we went to, then it was called The Kettle.
That sounds like the joint right there.
That's where everybody went to eat after the bar. And we
Okay.
sat and talked for a while. We exchanged phone numbers, and we kind of got to know each other, whatever.
Okay.
And after probably 6 or 7 months of dating, then I was pregnant. And I thought, maybe this party life needs to cease for a little bit.
Right.
And so I didn't. There was no drinking, no smoking, no doping, nothing while I was pregnant. But
How did everybody handle the pregnancy? Like, were your parents like, "Oh, okay, well, that's good," and then the boyfriend? Or?
My mom managed to go and decide to maybe look into getting my plot for my burial.
Okay. Oh, yeah, because the doctor had advised you about
About
right.
having kids. So, yeah.
Hey, I'm so happy you're pregnant. Let me go.
Yeah.
Let
me start your
plot
funeral.
shopping.
Hey,
Yeah.
will you go in the white pages real quick and look up tombstones?
Right.
Right. In a way, I can't say. I can understand her perspective.
Yeah.
I can understand why, as a mom, that would really scare you to death. I get that.
Right.
But from my perspective, it was like, whatever.
Right. I can handle. I'm invincible. I'm bulletproof.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So whenever the news came about, of course, it was kind of like, oh, okay. It wasn't like I was shunned or shamed. It was like, okay, well, his parents were more like, you really need to get married.
Yeah.
That's kind of the right thing to do. And I'm thinking at this point, who cares
Right.
about the right thing to do? I don't care.
Yeah.
So, but we did. We got married
Uh-huh.
and had our first child.
What town did you grow up in, by the way?
I grew up in Caddo Mills, Texas.
Oh, okay. All right. Just.
I was actually born in Frankfurt, Germany.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My dad
Army.
was in the military.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, but I was very young when they moved back here.
Right.
And lived in Caddo Mills literally till I graduated high school.
Gotcha.
And then after high school, there was a period in there where I'm not really sure exactly where I lived because I was wherever I could stay during the bar hopping and partying scenes.
Right.
But then when I was 20 was when I met my ex-husband, the girl's
gotcha.
dad.
Okay.
And then we moved to Paris. And so I
okay.
was in Paris till from age 20 till 35 or
Right.
6 maybe.
And that is
So-
Paris, Texas.
Yes,
just to
Paris,
make that
Texas.
clear.
Yeah, I was.
Hey,
Right.
they got a little Eiffel Tower. It's like that. They got a little Eiffel
It's like
Tower.
a little
That's-
It's like
it's
a little,
really big.
It's like a little France, but it's in Texas.
And it has a big red cowboy hat on the top, by the way.
There we go.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So after my daughter was born, I remember my husband coming in and he said, do you need anything? What do you want? And I said, I need a donut and a shot of Jack.
Right.
That was just my first,
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, I can probably do the donut, but I don't know about the other.
Right.
So after she was born, we went right back to bar hopping, and his mom would watch the kids for us, and life was great and grand and whatever. And there was some moving in between there to Detroit, Texas, and then back to Paris, Texas. Well, then I got pregnant.
All these fake.
I know, right?
All these wannabe towns.
Well,
in
no,
Texas.
there's also Pittsburgh, Texas.
Yes.
There's also
Italy, Texas.
There's
I know that.
telephone, Texas.
Yeah.
But I got pregnant with my second child.
Okay.
And, of course, all the life stopped except for, I had enough sense to be a mom, you know. And things kind of slowed down a little bit for me as far as the party life. But then I started learning and discovering cocaine.
Hell yeah, dude.
Well, we all call that the drinker's companion.
Right.
Because if you do cocaine, then that means you can drink more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then
Makes
after
perfect
I
sense.
found out that I had to have a lot of dental work done, I discovered that great white pill of hydrocodone.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was, I think, even a greater obsession than the cocaine was. I'm not
Really?
going to say greater than alcohol, but it was greater than the cocaine. Because I learned at that time, I had gotten a job as a paraprofessional at a school. We'll leave it at a school.
Right.
And
When you say paraprofessional, what is that?
it's like a
exactly mean?
teacher's assistant.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, because I had gained my paraprofessional certification. But I had discovered that I could take hydrocodones at work. Because I didn't want to drink at work. You're going to smell that.
Right.
So I could pop those hydros. And I had it down to an art of knowing I could eat 2 crackers, 4 drinks of a Sprite, take 2 hydros.
Right.
And then in 3 hours, I could take 2 more.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just an obsessed repetition. And
what kind of feeling did you get from the hydrocodone? Because, I mean, as somebody that never really, I would always kind of get sick to my stomach if I ever took it. And, I mean,
basically Kelly's a pussy is what it's trying to say.
It would kind of subside the pain. But, I mean, it was never really like, oh, I want to feel like this all the time. So what was your experience with it? Like, I mean.
have you ever seen Over the Hedge? With Hammy? The little squirrel that goes all over the place? That was me.
Oh, yeah, he turned into a superhuman.
Absolutely.
Yeah, some people have that effect where it's like they just, like he called me after he had some dental stuff, whatever it was.
Some dental
What did you have done? Something for sleep apnea. And you had hydrocodone or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was like, dude,
septoplasty.
he was like, how the fuck did you like taking this stuff?
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, he was like, I'm about to like fall asleep sitting on my couch and I fucking hate this. And I was like, dude,
No.
fucking.
You do it for the nod.
Yeah, dude, that's what you do it for, but you never get there.
Right.
You never get there.
No, I never got there.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
it gave me just almost a natural buzz. But I could also learn if I had enough to drink the night before and could still have a buzz on the next morning, I could keep that going because it's like those hydros fed that. Just kept it fed, you know, just without the lingering breath of alcohol, you know, throughout the day.
Sure.
And it just, I mean, that was the absolute obsessed lifestyle I lived. And it got worse and worse and worse. And I ended up leaving one school district to go to another school district at...
Did you get asked to leave?
No.
Or just,
No. I had, during that time, I had gotten a divorce. And I had met another guy. And honestly, just out of flattery, I thought, oh, yeah, okay, somebody finds me attractive. I have 2 kids. You know, it's that female mental, emotional need you have to have met with... You don't feel like you're ever going to be good enough. You don't feel like nobody's ever going to love me and like me and see me and whatever.
Right.
And there was someone that just gave just enough attention that, you know, there it was. And so.
I'm in.
Yeah. And that was a marriage that probably lasted 4 years. I mean, that was whenever my spiral just absolutely went insane.
This is when Beth gets out there, dude.
I mean, this is when Beth's doing, you know, cocaine on the bathroom floor of a gas station, you know, kind of thing. And I mean, I don't say that like, you know, I'm proud of doing that. I'm saying like, that's
what
how
happened.
Absolutely ridiculous I was behaving. And all unbeknownst to my kids most of the time. Now, they knew about my drinking, and they could see the effects.
And how
of
old
that.
are your kids, like, when they're starting to realize what's going on?
They're in their teenage years. As a matter of fact, my daughter was probably
Mom's about to nod off on hydrocodone.
14 or 15.
Right. Yeah.
My daughter was playing basketball, and I don't think I attended a basketball game of hers sober.
Right.
You know, and how unfair is that to her?
Sure.
You know? So things like that I do reflect back on, and I'm like, golly.
Right.
Why would I expect her to speak to me? You know?
Yeah.
And it took us a long time to amend that relationship.
Yeah, to repair that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, it wasn't like I ever blamed her. You know, well, I'm
Right.
her mom. I mean, I was like, you know, if she doesn't ever talk to me again, I can't say, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I went spiraling at that point because the drinking became absolutely just insane.
Okay.
And I would pop the hydros when I had them, but I would just as soon at that point do cocaine. Because it gave, in my mind, a quicker effect, a better effect, a faster effect, and more of an effect.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, unbeknownst to me, my eyeballs were probably doing the jitterbug.
Right.
But it was, I mean, I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, and my kids will tell me things I've said or done, and I'm like, what?
What?
Now do what?
Yeah.
Now do.
You know, do you remember doing? And I'm like, no.
Right.
And one of the biggest kickers for me was after my sobriety. I was probably 30 days into sobriety, and my daughter, we were sitting outside and we were talking about, me going to meetings and what, how things were working for me and what those entailed. And she said, do you know how many nights I would hear you leave?
Yeah.
And I never knew if you'd come home. And I mean, you just as soon rip my throat out.
Right. Yeah. Well, was there arrest and DUIs and all that
Yes.
stuff? And, well, I tell you what, let's get to that part, but real quick, we're going to throw to commercial before the good stuff.
Yeah, right? Because it gets good, dude.
Hey, we've got our friend Max the Axe at
Max the Axe.
thispinklawyer.com.
.com.
If you go to that website.
Assuming the internet's on.
Yeah.
If the internet's on, it'll work.
Okay. And what does he do?
He's a personal injury attorney, and he
He's
can
a
get you
personal injury
maximum
attorney, gets the
results for
maximum
all your
results
injury
for all your
needs.
injury needs.
And he does it in
Dude,
California,
yeah,
and Texas.
Right.
Yeah, he's licensed in 2 states.
Do you like how
and
I
his
just
name
threw
is
that
Max
off on
the
Chad?
Axe. He's Max the Axe, and
That's
that's
right.
a cool name.
Right. But go to thispinklawyer.com. He will get you the maximum results for your personal injury needs. And then also we have the Little Sheila commercial.
Little Sheila.
Little
Shout
Sheila
out
in the
Little
house
Sheila.
for the book.
2 calls.
Phone call as a parent that your son has been hit by a car and is being life flighted.
2 hours before we got the call, Chad had called me to tell me it was the best day of his life. And then I get another call, and a stranger had found him, and they were care flighting him to a trauma unit, and that he would start praying for our family that we needed to hurry.
When you wake up on the operating table and they're like, we're going to cut off both your legs. And then I wake up and then one's gone, the other one's in an external rod system. It's just not good. The real kicker is that I've had all of these scars all over my arms, and that's all from complications resulting from drug abuse.
I never thought about giving up on him. Never. This is my son, and I know he's going to be okay. You cannot just have help for the addict. You have to seek out professional help. The whole family has been affected.
And I just want to make that very clear to anybody who's out there listening, that if I can do this thing as much as I've been through, man, there's a lot of wiggle room for people before they get to that point where they can do it too.
All right. And that is the book is called 2 Calls.
Yes.
And if you go to 2calls.org, they can actually order the book and then also book you guys for speaking, correct?
Yes, and the email addresses are chad@twocalls.org and sheila@twocalls.org. I'm going to make her a new one that's Lil Sheila at twocalls.org.
You should make
that would
one,
be sick.
Make one for you, Chaff.
Chafe lemons.
Chafe lemons.
Chafe lemons.
Yeah.
But yeah,
anyway,
no, we
so
do
then-
speaking
then
stuff and all that. And
you just
she does
hold
book
on.
signings.
Did you just do speaking
Yeah,
stuff?
we did a speaking engagement.
You did speaking stuff?
Wait, yeah, we did speaking stuff or whatever. And she actually read part of the book, man. It was pretty
Right.
tough to sit through.
Oh, I
or whatever.
bet, dude. Yeah.
But it was really good. man.
Actually, like you couldn't shut your emotions
Yeah,
off.
I actually had emotions.
Wow.
Or whatever.
That's amazing.
Like I did when I was a little girl.
Right.
And
well, you're well on your way.
Shut
you're
up,
well
dude.
on your way.
Shut up, dude.
Bro.
piece of shit. And yeah, so it's really good. She helps a lot of people, and she gets to have a lot of great conversations with people
Right.
about what's going on. She's also in Barnes and Noble in
Yeah,
2
that's
different
great.
locations.
Well, and your
which is
mom
pretty cool.
your mom wrote the book so families could
could
relate.
understand that there's resources for them,
Right.
And so that families could have a little bit of hope.
There we go.
There
I
we
love
go.
it. I love it. And then we also have new music out. This one is called Tonight I'm All Right, and it's a good one.
It's a
My mind's all over you, your hands all over me. Won't give you up and all yours faithfully. My mind's all over you, you're hanging over me. Tonight I'm alright.
All right, and that is called Tonight I'm All Right. And actually, that is streaming also on the
it should be out already.
playlist is actually doing great.
Dude,
man.
the
We've got
playlist is doing fantastic.
1,500 followers on Spotify. So if you go to This Is Kelly Reverb on Spotify, then it'll have all our songs on there.
Yeah, and I just looked at it today, and you know what was really funny?
What's that?
I don't know what's going on in Helsinki, Finland. But
well, that's
yesterday
a
we
bot.
had 571 people in Helsinki, Finland stream that song.
That is a bot farm.
Yeah, I don't know how it just keeps getting picked up by them.
On bot farms, yeah. Well, no, I think what it is I think they actually have to use legit material in
so that
order
it covers
to,
their other stuff. Well, we had 571 people stream.
That is
Fantasy.
not, that fantasy.
Fantasy.
Your favorite song is Fantasy? Is that your favorite song? We did a song called Fantasy,
And then Kelly the other day,
I go, it is my fantasy.
It is my fantasy.
But anyway, so back to the good stuff. All right, like we're
when it gets good.
Yeah, exactly. So let's take it from there.
Oh, goodness. So I've had 2 DWIs.
Okay. And give us a timeline. So
Okay.
pregnant, 21, 2 kids. Give
My
us the
first DWI was before pregnancy.
timeline. Okay.
I was underage and highly, severely drunk.
Right.
And, it was one of those typical, say your ABCs backwards.
Right.
I'm like, dude, I can't say my ABCs backwards sober. How am I
Right.
going to,
I couldn't either.
aleck.
Right.
Anyway, yes, I got taken to the tank and scared to death, scared to death. But being adult age, it's not, you got to tough it out. But I remember sitting in there and the very first couple of hours, scared to death, crying, snotting and slobbering, oh my God, my life is over.
Right.
But then I recall thinking, okay, so they said a judge is going to come, and then, so what does that mean? I mean, I knew nothing about the process at that point,
Right.
because when you're thrown in on a Friday, you're not going to get to see a judge until Monday, worst case scenario. So, I was sitting there thinking, crap, what am I going to, okay, wait, there's a toilet over here, but there's 4 people in here. Where's the bathroom? It was things like that where that normalcy goes out the window because you automatically have to learn.
You're now in the system.
You have to learn how to adapt and overcome quickly.
Right.
And I remember thinking, okay, all right, you know what? I'm either going to be the top dog or I'm going to be the underdog.
Right.
Well, I'm not going to be an underdog.
Right.
It was that fight or flight, and so it was like, even if I have to call bluff, even if I have to lie through my teeth, I'm not going to be somebody's bitch. I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And so, it didn't take that long before I can do this. What's
invincible.
What's the worst case scenario?
Right.
I handled 3 days in jail.
Right.
No problem.
I stared death in the face my entire childhood, so I got this.
I've shit in front of 3 other women.
Well, honestly, you think at that point that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
it's a pretty big deal. My second DWI, I was, my daughter was 3.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think how old I was. It was after my first child.
Mm-hmm.
Before the second child. So,
gotcha.
It had to have been probably
mid-20s.
4 years after my first one.
Okay, so early 20s.
Yeah, early 20s probably.
Okay.
And so, again, it was in a different county, but same scenario. And so then it was like, going back. Not a problem.
Been there,
so you
done
walk,
that.
you walk in and you're like, all right, girls.
Listen up.
And that was
I'm going to need all your toilet paper and all your amenities.
But my convincing myself of my invincibility was to just fake it till I made it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Was I scared to death? Yeah, you bet I was.
Right.
But, it's kind of that never let them see you're scared.
It's that ego self-defense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, I walk in there like, all right, who's here? Who's top dog here? Okay,
Right.
we're gonna figure this out.
Right.
Kind of thing. And it just became a normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Then I had an assault charge.
Yeah, dude, that's a fighter, dude. That is a fighter.
Now,
dude.
was the assault charge from inside or outside?
It was outside the bar.
No. But I mean, I didn't know if it was inside, like while you were in prison.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
So
Oh,
this
no,
was-
of course not. That's too easy.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
That's an everyday thing.
Sure.
But my first assault charge, yes, it was outside in a parking lot at a bar. But it was one of those, again, I'm invincible. And there was a girl, I was walking out and a girl was walking in. And I said, did you look at me?
Right.
Are you looking at me?
Right.
Do you have a problem with me?
Right.
Who does that? You know?
Yeah, dude.
And so it was like, okay, well, I'm just going to have to bounce your head off the hood of the car because don't look at me.
Yeah.
I'm so good, you don't get to look at me unless I give you permission to look at me. I
Hell
mean, that
yeah.
was honest
Right,
to
yeah.
God, my egotistical is a mind.
Right.
And the second assault charge was just in a grocery store parking lot.
She's got this fucking thing about
Somebody parking
lots,
lot,
dude.
right?
Well, yeah.
Maybe because I could draw a crowd. I don't
Yeah.
know. And the more people that watch, the better. You know how we are.
It's that pro wrestler in you.
I guess so. And those, honestly, not that this is not something to brag about, but those were just the times I got caught.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I think of all the other times.
You were just like a perpetual fight starter.
Oh, I looked for it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was
had
one of those.
I had those friends like when I was growing up that I was like, once he starts drinking, he's going to start shit. And I know, and I would set ground rules. I go, hey, dude, by the way, I know you're going to start shit later, so I'm going to be over here by the car. If you make
be the
it,
getaway driver.
if you're done and you can walk away and you're not arrested, I'll give you a ride home, but I'm staying out of your shit, dude.
Well, funny story, before the actual ridiculous addiction started, our family had gotten together at some bar for birthday celebrations. I wasn't married to my second husband yet, but we were dating. And I always carried a pocket knife. It was a lock blade, you know, but at that time, you take care of yourself, right?
Right.
Well, I had seen a high school buddy, one of the guys I'd gone to high school with, on my way back from the restroom. And we were just talking, you know, how is it going? How have you been? Well, he was with the girl. I mean, and I was like, hey, you know, my name is Beth. And she was like, who the hell do you think you are?
Oh.
You know, and I went,
I'm your worst.
you talking to me?
I'm your worst nightmare,
yeah.
bitch.
And I mean, I said, are you addressing me? Because I knew him way long before you knew him. And we're getting loud, and we're getting louder. And my mom is standing over at the table. And whenever I said, if you want to start something, feel free to take one more step forward. And about that time I hear my mom, and she looked like, in my mind, like she's walking across the tables. You know, she's going, y'all stop her. She carries a pocket knife, and she'll use it. And I'm like, well, for the love of God, there I, you know, it's like, thanks for throwing me under the bus, you know. So, I mean, not that was a good time, but I just remember things like that of, oh my gosh, you know, that could have gone so much worse.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I had an indecent exposure charge. I mean, they were just, it's ridiculous. I mean, I went and peed in somebody's front yard one time.
All right.
I went through Paris, Texas, and pulled up all the for sale signs, like Century 21 signs, stuff like that. Put them at my house that I lived in, then called them and said, look, I don't know who's doing all this, but there's all these signs over here in my yard. And do y'all know, I mean, can y'all come pick them up? What's going on? How do I know?
What did you call each number?
Like, well, if it was like Century 21, I called the Century 21 in
just
Paris.
the
And I was like,
opposite.
hey, you know, somebody's put all these signs up here. Who does? I mean, who has that kind of manipulative?
I would do
Right.
that.
You know?
I would do that.
That-
But
for sure,
I mean,
dude.
That's
I remember
pretty-
the next morning thinking, I've got to get rid of these.
Right.
But, oh my God, they're going to know I did it. Well, they won't know I did it if I put it on somebody else.
Right.
That became the name of the game.
Right.
Put it on somebody else.
Right.
You know.
But
And again-
it's funny, like that you're pulling pranks on yourself.
But what's worse is, you know, you take your kids with you to do this.
Oh.
You know, who does that? You
Yeah.
know, it's that insanity.
Yeah.
But the more I got away with it and didn't get caught, well, the more I would try to do.
The
and
further the line
that's
goes.
Exactly
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Until I was teaching at an alternative school, and to not gather into a whole bunch of the rigmarole of all that was involved in it, I got charges slapped on me where I was facing 15 years in prison.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
that was the reality call for me.
Yeah.
Because by that point I had nearly grown children, and I
Sure.
did. I had a nice home and a vehicle, and a nice vehicle.
Right.
All these things. And the reality hit me of maybe I have a problem. Maybe I just need to slow down a little bit. Those stupid things we think. But there are people that always would say, Beth, you drink too much. I'm like,
Right.
y'all don't drink enough, though.
Right.
That's
exactly
the whole problem here. I don't have the problem. Y'all have the problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that reality came crashing down when I thought 15 years in a cement block. There's gonna be no nothing.
Right.
And I remember making a call to AA because I had gone to 2 different rehabs in the meantime of all of this.
Oh, you did?
And,
Okay.
Yeah, and it was kind
Was that by choice or was that by force or was that court ordered?
No, well, it's never court ordered.
Right.
One time was by choice. It lasted 7 days because
Okay,
when
wow.
I was there, I was like, no, y'all don't know me.
Yeah,
y'all know
right.
nothing about my situation.
Right.
Y'all don't understand about my situation.
got this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I don't need this. I can handle this. Well,
Right.
yeah, whatever. And the second time was kind of by, manipulation of you're going to go for me. And so, okay, I'll go for you. Sure, I will.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, and I did my little 30 days, and I got back out. Okay, I did what you wanted. Now I'm going to do what I want.
Right.
And it wasn't until I hit that moment of, you're going to be facing 15 years in prison. And I remember being absolutely so desperate, humiliated, and embarrassed because at this point, it was all over the newspapers.
Oh, okay.
It was
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Texas to Oklahoma to Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
Everywhere. I mean, I had attorneys from Oklahoma calling me, hey, we'll take your case. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, my God. You know,
Right.
you can't hide from that. There was nowhere left for me to hide. I
Sure.
was caught, so to speak.
Right.
And
And were you living in Paris at this time? Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's small town, and everybody knows your shit.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's it, exactly.
Well, they say small town, big tower.
yeah.
That's what they say about Paris.
Well, I remember I did. I laid down, face down in my living room floor. And I remember I said, okay, God, if you want me in prison, if that's what it's going to take for me to turn my life around, that's what I'll do. Mm-hmm. I'd rather not.
Right.
But if that's what you want and that's what I have to do, I'll be the best advocate to help those in need of where I'm at if I go.
Right.
And it ended up being I got 6 years probation instead.
Okay.
Deferred adjudication.
Yeah.
So, granted, yes, that worked out in my favor, but at the same time, I think that 6 years probation also was the best thing for me because you can't miss a blinker. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You can't go 2 miles over.
Well, I mean, but there are also people that, obviously, violate their probation all the time.
Yeah.
So were you able to, respect that and then not drink?
Oh,
and
I was scared to
all
death
the
to not
stuff?
do
Yeah.
what was required of me
Right.
at that point. Because,
okay.
I knew
You got
I had...
scared straight.
That's it.
Okay.
And I knew I had to turn my life around for me because I really was. I was scared I was going to die.
Okay.
Not only from, getting hit by a car, me hitting
Right.
a car.
Well, so scared you were going to die, but then also scared of going to prison as well, right?
I don't even know that that
15
thought
years,
process.
like,
Yeah, I had done some time.
Yeah.
I'd done 18 months here, and
Right.
I'd done 6 months here, and so hey, no
Right.
problem,
Yeah.
jail. But prison,
Yeah.
Huntsville,
Yeah.
hard pass.
Yeah.
And that's every single day. There's no reprieve in that. Mm-hmm. And the thought of even at that point toggling with, but am I really an alcoholic addict? And if I go to prison, though, I can't do this. If I'm really not an alcoholic, I can't still drink. All these things.
Right.
But I knew something had to turn around, and so I called the Paris downtown AA group. Mm-hmm. It's like when I finally make that choice.
Right.
Nobody answers the phone.
Right.
And it's an answer machine. And so I did. I left a voicemail. And there was an older gentleman that called me back, and he was like, our meetings are here and here.
Hey,
and
guys,
here.
we've been waiting for you.
Right. So I remember, I went to my first meeting because my last drink was on Mother's Day weekend of 2014.
Okay.
2013, May 13th, 2013.
Uh-huh.
And so that following Monday, I went to an AA meeting. And I remember sitting out on that bench, just, knees just a-chumping, and I was shaking and scared to death and didn't know what was going to happen. And I remember a gentleman came up, and he was like, "Hey, how are you? I'm so-and-so, nice to meet you." He said, "Come on in and have a seat." And I'm thinking, you don't even know me. And he was like, "But sit all the way back in your chair. Go ahead and sit all the way back."
Right.
And I was like, "I don't think you need to be telling me what to do,
Right.
And so I sat all the way back, and he goes, "That way you're not too scared to jump up and leave." He goes, "My suggestion is you sit here and close your mouth and open your ears."
Right.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't know that this is for me, And I mean, I'm looking around the walls at all this stuff on the walls, and I'm like, they are full of crap. This is
Right.
like some kind of group.
This is some kind
kind
of
cult.
mind-washing cult.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought, this is ridiculous.
The 12 traditions. I mean,
Well, and I'm reading all this on the beam, off the beam,
Yeah,
and
right.
these promises. What are promise? Promise doesn't mean crap.
Right.
There's no promises.
Uh-huh.
There's no such thing as a promise.
Right.
And it took me by my third meeting when I really started listening, and it was, I heard someone talking, and they were a judge at the court, and I'm like, he said, why is he here?
right.
Because in my mind, a drunk, an alcoholic, was this old man with the beard, trench coat,
Right.
brown paper bag.
He looked like Otis on
Exactly.
right on
So
yeah.
to look around these rooms and see doctors and attorneys and judges and and I'm going, oh, maybe I might
Right.
have a problem. And when I finally got a sponsor, and she said, "What makes you think you're an alcoholic?" And I was kind of like, not so sure I am.
Right.
And she goes, "So you can go out and have just a couple of drinks and go home." And I was like, absolutely not.
Right.
And she said, then you're an alcoholic.
Right.
She said, why do you want a sponsor? Why do you want to clean your life up? And I told her, I said, because I'm scared to death I'm going to die and I have to do something different. She said, well, then you're ready to take some steps.
Right.
Because I've heard many people say, I want to get sober for my husband. I want to get sober for my kids.
Right.
And when they tell me those things, I'm like, well, then I can't sponsor you right now.
I always tell people I can't make you want it, and that's the whole thing, kind of what you're saying.
And when they look at me like, oh, I thought you were here to help.
You
and I'm
have,
like,
you have to.
I am here to help you. But
Right.
what are you going to do if you work all these steps and you work this program and then your husband still leaves you?
Right.
Or you lose your kids?
Right.
What godforsaken reason do you have to stay sober?
Exactly.
You don't.
Yeah.
So you've got to do this for yourself.
Sure.
Oh, you kind of get those responses, and
Right.
they either stay and stick with it, or they go.
Right.
And I see it. We see it every day.
Yeah.
Sure.
And hear it every day. And I do. I hate it because it's like, well, my husband's going to serve me divorce papers if I don't do this.
Right. I mean, you're like, well,
Well, that's going to happen if you do it, you stupid bitch.
I mean, I'm like, do you not see
You're
the
already
reality here?
toast.
Yes, you're already sunk. Because do
Yeah.
you see where you are right now?
here, let me get the white pages for you, and we'll go ahead and look up.
We'll
his
go ahead and
birth-
Go ahead
find
and
you
look up
at
your
a
tombstone
Tony.
real quick.
Right.
But I mean, yes. Can I say I've lived a life of hell, chaos, and confusion? Absolutely. Yes, I have been through some domestic abuse.
Well, that kind of makes me think that you might have started some of that domestic abuse.
Yeah, to myself, yeah.
But just like bring it, dude. I can just see it. Like,
I can remember
Yeah.
after sobriety.
Right.
I remember being pushed down some attic stairs, and I broke my foot.
Okay.
But I wasn't allowed to go to the emergency room. And because I think he was afraid I would, tell what happened.
Right.
And it was one of those where, hey, if you don't go, I'll buy you a car.
Right.
And it did. I got a brand new car.
What? Right.
Well, then
what
at
kind
that
of car was it?
It was a Kia Soul.
Oh, okay. Well,
And at that point, I'm
Did it
thinking.
come with a hamster?
But at that point too, I'm putting together in my head it's still that insane thinking of, well, I'm sober, but this is still happening. But if I can take this and I can get nice things.
Yeah.
So it
if
was
I can
kind of like,
manipulate,
if I
yeah,
can
right.
take the punishment, I can have nice things.
Sure.
And it was even backtracking in some of my life. seeing that there was that same pattern of behavior. If I'll take the punishment,
Right.
there's something good to come out of
Sure.
it. Because the invincibility in it was, I had 2 kids and I didn't die. So what's going to happen
Right.
to me?
Exactly.
I'm not going to die.
I broke my foot. I got a key of soul.
That's it. I mean, but, you know, those things, I mean, it made sense to me in my
Sure.
mind of,
Yeah.
hey, it's worth it.
Right.
Absurdly, that's what I was thinking at that time.
Right.
And then I didn't want to start over. I mean, I'm newly sober. I didn't want to have to start over. I have 2 kids, you know, and it was like this, there's no possible way I can do this. No possible way. And I remember my kids weren't completely on board in the beginning with all this sobriety and what is AA and, you know, mom's an addict, alcoholic,
Right.
and that's not
She's
something you
joined
want to
some
ever.
cult.
Well, and it's
Right.
not like when you're 10 years old, you say, well, I want to grow up and be an alcoholic addict because I
Right.
think it's going to be great,
Yeah.
you know, and have all these assault charges and all that. No, that's not what you do. But I think that in them, I learned, my sponsor told me that in my recovery, she said, Beth, stop talking. Stop talking. Quit telling your kids what you're doing. Let them see it. And so when I started doing that, there kind of became a different, you know, relationship that happened there. And when I was 1 year clean and sober, I walked in from doing my probationary duties. And when I walked in, they'd baked me a cake. And it said, happy 1 year birthday.
Hell yeah.
And so I was like, they get it, you know.
Yeah.
And so I knew there was some support there. But my oldest daughter still had some issues with that. And we went a long time without speaking, like years.
Well,
without speaking.
she probably had some animosity towards
Absolutely.
you from, you know, did you make amends with the daughter?
Yes.
Or- yeah.
Yes.
Okay. But it didn't take. I mean, you know.
Oh, no, hold on. Because I didn't make
right.
amends to her until probably 3 months ago.
Oh, okay. Well, there we
because
go.
they were just supposed to understand.
By the way, mom's sober, and
Yeah.
whatever I did to y'all in the past,
That's kind
deal
yeah.
with it.
Well, it was kind of like one of those, hey,
Yeah.
sorry about that. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, passive. Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. Whoops, my bad. And when I got a new sponsor and they were telling me, you know, we're going to go back through the steps. And I said, I've already been through the steps.
Right.
Wrong thing to say. You know?
Right.
And so as we went back through the steps, they were telling me, like, you really need to hone in on this, you know, 4th and 5th step. And I'm like, but I've already done this. There might be some resentments there, though, that you're not really aware of.
Right.
And sure enough, that was one of them that came to head, you know, was that had I really, truly making amends to my daughter. Because I would pass out in their bed,
Right.
go in and just, and I'd piss in their bed.
Right.
And then they had to clean that up.
Right.
Or I'd throw up somewhere and then they would have to go clean that up.
Oh, man.
So it was things like that started coming back into my mind that I learned not to be humiliated in that moment anymore, but to find the humility in that. And
Gotcha.
to extend grace in that amends, hoping that maybe grace would be extended back. If
Right.
it wasn't, so be it.
Yeah.
If it was, okay. But luckily it was. And so, you know, we're getting there. It's slowly,
Right.
but, you know, slow but sure, you know, that
Sure.
it's baby steps. It's not an instantaneous thing.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if somebody's been holding on to that and been, you know, has that animosity towards you for their entire childhood, it's going to take, you know, a little bit of time to repair that.
I
you
had
know?
to learn that, you know, the big book tells us about acceptance
Yeah.
and expectations.
And yeah, and you can't control how they feel. you
And I
know?
think my biggest thing was, and I know Chad and I've had some conversations about it too, but do I want peace or do I want to be right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so many times where just because it's that pause, pray, walk away. So even in that chaotic moment, I know I'm right in whatever it is. Is it really worth it to lose my sanity
Sure.
to prove I'm right, or to do that pause, pray, and then I can just walk away from it?
Right. Yeah.
Because I know I might have been right,
Yeah.
but I have to be okay with that. And there's so many times where I look back and can see, even in my sobriety, where I allowed some of that insanity to come back in. My
Yeah.
physical body might have been sober, but I
Yeah.
was drunk outside in my mind. You
Right.
know? And I had
Well,
to
there's
learn-
still like that's a big part of recovery.
Yes.
is the mental aspect of it is not just okay, I'm not drinking anymore. I mean, it's like behavioral, like, you know, your neural pathways, like if you're used to this kind of behavior, you know, I mean, it's stuff you have to deal with. And that's actually what the steps are kind of
Right.
designed to do, is to make you deal with your baggage.
That's right. and not blame somebody else.
Yep.
But I hear so much, and especially at work and even in those I sponsor, how
Right.
there's such an insecurity.
Right.
And it's like, how can I fix that? You know,
Right.
how can I fix their insecurity?
Well, I was going to say you work at the Meadows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you and Chad both.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did that happen? How did you migrate into working in recovery?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I it's funny because if I stand up to tell my story in front of people, I'll say, you know, I have, and it's not to be bragging or egotistical, but it's to prove a point, because I'll say I have an associate's in applied science. I have a teaching certification, paraprofessional certification. I have a degree in health and medical administration, medical billing and coding, and a bachelor's in psychology.
And I will whip your
And
ass.
of course,
And I'll beat the shit out of you.
and of course, everybody's like, oh, you know.
Right, yeah.
And I say, and I'm a recovering alcoholic addict. And they're like, wait, what? But
Right.
you just said, you know.
Right.
Stop the stigma. You know,
Sure.
there's no certain specific requirements for an addict alcoholic.
Right.
It is no respecter to race, religion, anything, job. And so whenever I got my bachelor's in psychology, my main thought and goal in that was I really didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't. Whenever I got sober, I really did. I thought, I'm going to be stupid. I've killed so many brain cells between the cocaine. And I tried heroin a couple of times. It just wasn't.
Right. Wasn't your jam.
I mean, okay,
kind of
that-
like me and hydrocodone.
See, yeah, it's kind of like, okay, that's cool, but that's not what I want. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking between the alcohol and the cocaine and I have fried my brain. I'm going to be like 504,
Right.
you know? And so I went to school to do the medical billing and coding because my thought process was, you can do this at home.
Yeah.
I can stay in my house. I can be a hermit, and nobody has to know I exist. And you know, and it'll be okay.
Yeah.
And so I do this, and I go to school, and I get my degree in that, and then I get my certification, and then find out you have to work at a doctor's facility for X amount of time before you can do it from home. And I'm like, well, that's shot to pot, you know.
Right.
And then I got a phone call from the same college, and they said, hey, your GPA was so high and high enough that we want to offer you a full ride for health and medical administration. And I'm like, oh, I'm not stupid. You know? And I mean,
Right.
it really, so, and who doesn't take free education? And so I did that. But that I knew that's not what I wanted to do. And I had a stepmom who, she was a psychologist, and she would always tell me, Beth, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out,
Sure.
what you need to be doing. I'm like, well, can't you just tell me what I need to be doing?
Right.
And it dawned on me when she passed, and I thought, that's it. I need to do what I know the most about. That's recovery, and
Right.
that's addiction. And so let's do this.
Right.
So I have been to a Paris AA meeting at one time, and Dr. Lee was there, and he said we hadn't seen each other in a while because I had moved away from Paris for a while, and now we've moved back. And he goes, you know, what have you been doing? And I was like, oh, just, you know, going to school, bachelor's in psychology, and I want to get my master's and then my PhD. And he was like, no, you're not going to do that. I'm
Okay.
like, what? He said, don't get your PhD. He said, get your master's and then come work with me at the Meadows.
All right.
And I was like, oh, it's the Meadows. Because I had no clue what that was.
Sure.
Well, I got online one day, and I was just scrolling through and looking at the Meadows, and I was like, oh, look at all these different job opportunities. And I'm like, what's a PhD? And so I was like, oh, it's PRN. So I wouldn't really be obligated to, you know, work,
Right.
you know, 40,000 hours in a week. You know, I
Sure.
could kind of work as wanted or needed. So I applied. I mean, what's going to happen? I'm not in a worse situation if they say no.
Right.
And it was probably, I don't know, a couple of weeks later, and I got a phone call, and they were like, hey, we want you to start, you know, we want you to interview. And I was like, oh, my gosh, I am employable. Because that was really a big
Right.
thing for me.
Sure.
Because I'm thinking with all these charges on my record,
Yeah.
and with this, even though it was a deferred adjudication, it was a third-degree felony, and I thought, I'll never have a job again.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so now it's like, you know, I'm living my best life with this felony, and I
Right.
can use it to my advantage.
Yeah.
You know, kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
So I had, like I said, I took that humiliation and had to learn how to have humility in it. And my sponsor told me, they said the best way to look at humility is it keeps you right-sized. Because, you know, sometimes we do, especially in our job, you know, we're like, yes, I did that one. I got that one.
Right.
And then it's like, wait a second. No, you're just but a small part
Yeah.
of that. And I have to remind myself of that because that humility is what I think helps in our process of sanity. Because
Right.
if not, we're going to go into that ism and we're going to get stupid and invincible again. And then here we go with that, that process.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because I've always said, people are like, well, how do you do it? How do you do it? And I don't look at it like I can't ever drink again. I can. That's
Yeah.
what got me here.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And I can drink again, and I can relapse, but I don't know that I could get sober again.
Right.
I
You don't
really
know.
don't.
You've got,
At 51,
Yeah.
knowing the hold that alcohol and cocaine and pills and dope had on me, I don't know that at 51, I think I'd look at it like, I'm
Yeah.
51.
It's like,
screw it, I'll just die like this.
What do people say? They say, I've got
I got another run in me,
I've got
dude. I
plenty,
got
of,
another recovery.
plenty of relapses in me, but I don't know if I have any recoveries left.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I got another run in me, dude, but I'm going out that time.
Right.
I'm going out, dude.
And and that's my fears. How do you know that one last time, that one last first drink, and going to
Yeah.
be the one last first
Yeah.
drink that takes you out? And I'm just not willing to take that chance now.
I hear you. Well, and it sounds like, you got your shit together and you're repairing relationships.
Yes.
And,
And you get to help
know,
other people with all
and
the
you get to-
experience that you have now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's the fun part, I
Right.
think. Because when they say, people come to you and you're like, well, I understand. You don't understand. Oh, but I do.
Well, I mean, that's the cool part about being in recovery or working in there is those few people that you can actually help,
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not 100%,
Yeah.
the recovery rate,
And I
as
have to,
we all know.
Yeah, and we can't save everybody, and I
Yeah.
know that.
Right.
But I love when people will come in and they'll go, well, I tried AA. It didn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. It didn't work for you. It's not meant to work for you. You have to work
Right.
AA.
Yeah.
And,
True.
and there's they'll go,
Yeah.
like crap. So, I mean, I learn, I think, just as much sometimes
Right.
as I can teach.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's the joy of it, because every time we have an admit come in that door, I'm like, God, it's still out there.
Yeah.
It is still
It's
out
still
there.
happening.
Yeah.
Right.
And, it's,
Yeah.
you think sometimes you go to work and you get in this little bubble of,
Uh-huh.
your habits and your consistencies of your schedule, and you just think, okay, this is cool and great, but then that reality hits you, and I see certain patients or certain women in there, and I'm like, oh, wait a second, I was right there. I was right there.
Yeah.
And it'll hit you. I don't go to work to get a paycheck. I mean, I'm not saying that's not needed.
I mean,
we
yeah.
got to have a paycheck to pay your bills.
Yeah,
I get
sure.
that. But my main drive and motive in going to work is to just be able to help and give to that one person something
Sure.
I have.
Kind of
that
being
might
of
help them.
service.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Absolutely.
Well, that's great. Well, and I appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, driving all the way from Paris,
France.
France, man.
See, they got a highway all the way from Paris, France,
She
called
took the channel.
I-30.
She took the channel from it runs from Paris to Paris, Texas. But yeah, and then we've got James.
Yeah, he's
James
downstairs.
coming on. Is okay, cool. So we've got your partner in crime coming
Oh,
on.
great.
Hell yeah, dude.
Oh yay! That's like people say. Oh, Chad's gonna be here. I'm like, great. But thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
I
Thank
appreciate it. If anybody wants to reach out to you, are you on Facebook or anything?
I'm on
like that?
Facebook,
Okay.
yes. Yep.
All right, and it's just under.
It's under actually Beth Burchett.
Okay.
Bethea.
So if they want to reach out to you, DM you, and talk to you, because
Absolutely.
If they're needing help or something like that.
24/7, my
Love
phone's
it.
on.
Okay. Love it. And then Chadwick, as always, it's kind of a pleasure.
Yeah, well, you suck. You did good today, though.
Oh, thank you.
You did all right.
Yay.
You're not. You
did
didn't
all
do
right,
too
kid.
bad today.
You did all right.
Yeah,
kid.
yeah. You didn't do too bad. All right, man.
All right. Well, be sure like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And then remember, kids, there is no magic pill for sobriety, because if there was, we would all take too many.